Welcome to the Kada session on 3 ways to thrive in a toxic work environment. I am Ashish Datta. Who am I? Well, a lot of things are said on the screen. I am also a TEDx speaker. I am two-time author. I am with Congruent, a CEO, CFO. But you know what really defines me are my failures. In my more than 3 decades, I have faced a lot of failures. I have faced a lot of conflicts across industries, people, and that has actually made me stronger. I know what really works on the ground, what doesn't work, because I faced so many challenges, so many failures. So that's really what stands me out. That's made me a person who is very realistic, and realism is what we need as we talk about the subject today, which is about the toxic environment. Now, what is really a toxic environment? How do you know that you are working in a toxic environment? There are some signs which will tell you that yes, you are working in a toxic environment. Which are those signs? Sorry, excuse me. Lack of communication. You will obviously find out. And by the way, this work environment, toxic environment is something that you will feel, you will experience and feel. You will find a lack of transparency. People are very hush hush. They don't discuss issues openly. Then you will see there's a lot of movement in the company. People resigning, leaving, new people joining, again resigning. There's a constant turnover. When you look for people for support, you don't get the right kind of support. If there's a crisis, a challenge, people say you have to sort it out. We don't know. They're not ready to help each other. The bosses are not accessible. You are told what to do this, do this. The chance of creativity, ideas are less. There's excessive what we call micromanagement. And a feeling of negative all around. People are hush hush. They are more interested in covering their back, putting the blame on somebody else, too much of gossip. So these are the general signs that will make you experience and feel that yes, you are in a toxic environment. Anything more that you think you have faced that you'd say in a toxic environment? Anybody? You can type in the chat box as we get along. But to me, by and large, these are the main issues that gives me a feeling of, yeah, this is not the environment that I'd like to be in, or it's toxic. Now, I want to talk of 3 aspects about this. The first is, today in this world, there are many ways to get some feeling about a company before you join a company. I have at least done a lot of reviews. There are a lot of places where people put reviews. It may not be accurate. It is difficult to find out, but still today, it is a much better situation than when what is to before. You can definitely find out about a company. I have done that myself. Try to talk to people. You can ask some different interesting questions to the company. And when you visit the company, also you get a feel. You can ask interesting questions. What are the leadership challenges? How does team collaboration work? What are the well-being, employee well-being that your company promotes? It is not easy to get the right answer, but you can definitely make a feel of reviews. So it is better to do a lot of review, a lot of research. If you know people, try to find out who has worked and try to get a feel of the company. If the company is really toxic, some people will definitely speak out because they left the company in frustration or they know about the company. And if you know somebody well, they will definitely warn you. So it is important to do that proper research to find out about the company as much as you can. It's not easy. I admit it. It's not easy. That's the first thing I want to talk about here. The second thing I want to talk about is a toxic work environment. It is not that people are shouting at you. Yeah, in toxic environment, people shout, even the bosses shout, they shout at each other. There are some environment which is very nice to work in. You feel good, people are very nice to you, but behind the scene, there is so much happening. Sometimes it is very difficult to find out, to realize that you're actually working in a toxic environment. You don't know what people are doing. So it is not necessarily that a lot of shouting and going on. It could be quiet even behind the scene. I've experienced it myself, and you don't realize it. Bosses are fighting, you become a pawn and you get drawn into it. So it is not necessarily a very noisy environment. It could be all a very quiet. You feel nice working here, but behind it's actually toxic. It will take you a long time to realize it's toxic, and it might have become very late at that point. The third point is, we talk about toxic environment. But who creates a toxic environment? We also create toxic environments. I have once created because I did not interact with people in the way I did not know. So you are also responsible to create a toxic environment. It is not just the management and the company. The way we act, the way we behave can also create a toxic environment. So we should be always very aware of how you are dealing with people. Even in a very good company, by your behavior in your sphere, you can create a toxic environment. So an environment could be already be created. It could be created by you, and it could be something which you realize very late. Be aware of these points in terms of the signs of a work environment. You should be self-awareness, be aware of whether you are creating that kind of a work environment or not. Now then the question is, yes, if you get into such an environment, what do you do? Do you say, yeah, I quit, I'll get another job? I don't think that's so easy. Easier said than done. It's not that easy. Some of these companies actually pay very well. So you're stuck. You can't even leave the company. Some companies are giving, as even in stock options, they pay very well. But the environment is so bad, the salary is so good, you're not able to leave. So what do you do? Well, before I come to what I think is the three ways you can handle, the 3 ways to thrive, as this session is about, let me first talk a little about your mindset. Having the right mindset, is very important. What kind of a mindset should you have? The very first mindset is, as what I call it, a negative mindset. I call it a disbelief mindset. You know, what happens in an aircraft? When there is turbulence ahead, the pilot warns us, we put on our belts, seat belts, we brace for the impact. When you expect something to go wrong in your mind, something can go wrong. When you're already expecting it, impact is actually less. It is not a negative mindset. When you expect things to go wrong, you're better prepared. You're better prepared. Yes, I know everything will go wrong. What happens? The impact is not that great. It will be. At the same time, you're also prepared with different strategies to work upon. It happens to me very often. I always think I'll fail. And I believe that's a very positive quality, because when I have that feeling of self-doubt, I prepare very hard, even if it's a meeting, any situation, any presentation, even when I was doing my CA studies. In fact, I come out successful. So when you expect that kind of a mindset that things will go wrong, you'll have different risk management strategies, you'll be prepared, and you can brace the impact much better. If you don't have this mindset and you get into that environment, it plays havoc on your mind. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I can say from experience, if you are in an environment, you have to find a solution. You cannot blame the company, quit the company, and expect others to change. If you are in an environment, well, that's the reality, then you have to find a solution. You are the problem. I say this in all cases, and more so in such an environment where you work, which is a toxic environment. And the third thing is, have patience. You're going to have problems. It is going to take time. It is not going to be easy. You should be ready for the long haul. Even you have to work on it, it will take time. So if you have this kind of a clear mindset, it is easier to face the problem in your mind. Otherwise, it will play a lot of havoc. So that's the mindset. Let's come to the three strategies that I talked about to thrive. Now, I have experienced a couple of companies. I want to talk about a very big company. It's a very big company. Even if I tell you the name, you'll immediately be do it. And I used to audit that company when I was doing my articleship to my CA. I'm talking of the when was that? Uh, I think late 80s, 89, 90, I'm talking about. That environment was horrible. Just horrible. Everybody used to be terrified of the boss. Terrified. All quiet, they're scared. He used to pick them up anytime, rub them, shout. Everyone was terrorized. They used to be scared coming to office. But within that environment, there was one person. I observed the boss, they never even could speak anything to him. Never even once. And if he did, he'll put that person down. He will put the boss down. And what he wanted to say, he was very clear. 'Clear. 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 ' That was only one person. It was a sales office, but it was a branch office, not many people. One branch office, maybe 25 people. But he was the only one. He could not do anything. He will give it back. Very respectfully. When I saw the boss, he was not doing with him. What do you think could have been the reason? Everybody was terrorized. Very scared. Very toxic environment. What do you think could have been the reason? Tangraj sir, would you like to make it? What do you think could have been the reason?
My feeling is that that person, he would have known better information on why the environment is like that, and he would be with kind of a positive mindset that in days to come something maybe by action or by providence some change would take place, and things can get set right. This could be one condition. The other condition is, um, in an army, the obedience is first. You ask someone jump, he'll jump. You ask someone fall, he'll fall. Now, in that kind of a regimental discipline environment, this could be one another reason. Right? Currently, I think these could be the two reasons why he would be.
Thank you very much, sir. He did his homework. Let's be very clear. He did his homework. Now, I named that something. But before that, I would like to name another company. There, the boss used to come, everybody used to get very angry. And again, I'm talking of 1980s and 90s, shouting. Well, today, if you shout, that's a different thing. Again, people used to be terrorized. But they were terrorized when he used to come to office in the morning, because he will make it is a manufacturing unit, he will make a round and he will see production, there is an issue, he gets angry and he'll vent out his anger on people. And people used to be terrorized again, but later on he used to stabilize. But he had a temper. But there was one person again there who did not have this problem. And the boss also could not shout at him or did not shout at that person. And when I analyzed, as I was thinking about it before I came to this card, what could have been the reason? That one reason that stands out to me is your credibility. Both these persons were too good in their work. They made themselves indispensable to the organization. They understood what the boss wanted. They helped the boss, not in a negative way. The boss could not do without them. It is their credibility. Everything, first thing is your credibility. If you have top-notch credibility, you have a better chance of handling this environment, because the organization cannot do without you. What is there in credibility? I would say there are three things in credibility. Exceptionally good performance. You should be doing exceptionally good, not average or good performance, exceptionally good performance. That is the very first thing, credibility. The second thing is visibility. Make yourself so indispensable. Indispensable is the wrong word. That the clients love you. Make yourself available to others. Help them in what they need. Even in a toxic environment, you can do that. So as Thangaraz sir says, have a positive mindset. See what the organization needs. See what your boss needs, what your team needs, and help them out. And give top-notch performance. That is the very first thing. If you don't have that positive mindset, you don't give that performance, you don't make a difference to the organization, you can forget about trying to sort out these kind of environment. You cannot. This is the very first thing. People will notice you. I had once created a toxic environment myself because of my lack of knowledge at that time. I had a big temper. I used to shout at people. I was geared out by unions twice. I created toxic relationship with people because of myself. Because I did not know how to handle at that point. I'm now 30 years back. And there were a couple of people whom I think it was a very poor, toxic relationship. More than toxic, I would say. But with time, I tried to help them out. I tried to bring in some systems which actually improved their work. I helped to solve some problems of theirs. Our relationships changed. And even today, we are friends. I left the company long time back. It is all a part of credibility. Solving problems for people, understanding who needs what, communicating in a manner which is beneficial to the other person, helping people, and of course, your top-notch performance. That's the starting point. You have to stand out. Yes, even after that, people will work behind you, try to stab you, work you. Agreed. But this is a starting point. Then you have some chance. One is credibility. It is the most important, perhaps, and the first thing that you have to do. So what is after credibility? The second strategy I would have, and I call that respectfully assertive communication. Your communication in such situations should be assertive and very clear. Should be very clear what you want to speak. What is your point of view on this matter? Very clearly, but respectfully. Listening to others, because respectfully assertive communication is not one way. Listening to what the others needs, trying to address that concern. If somebody says something, yes, let's discuss. In such environment, you should be very clear and assertive in your communication, because respectfully assertive communication has a lot to do with your personality. It has a lot to do. Should be shown firm, confident, very clear in the terms of how you message, your messaging. You're also respectful, listening to others, trying to behaving like a true professional. Just working is not enough. You're speaking very meekly. That will be very clear. That's the second way, I would say. The third is, I call it, don't mess with me. You must put that badge on. Don't mess with me. What is the meaning of this? Don't mess with me. Define your boundaries very clearly as a professional. Understand your responsibilities. Work very clearly to it. Do not get involved in gossips. You will get sucked in, no doubt. But the question is, you have to draw that boundary very clearly using respectfully assertive. This is what I will do. This is my boundary. Do your work professionally. Don't get into groupism or gossips. Groups are fine. Don't get into this kind of gossips. Select your boundary very well. Select your boundaries very well. It is very necessary in such environments. Yes, you will get sucked in. There's no question about it. But then how you say it doesn't mean you're not making friends. But you stay away from gossip. You stay away from negative kind of politics. There's politics everywhere. Everybody is there to compete with each other. But you are playing good politics. Increase your visibility so that you are a person to mess with. One is your boundary. Prioritize and be very clear about your work, what you are going to do. Very clear of the responsibilities, working towards it and giving results to the company. You're interacting with people, but professionally, with respect, trying to help them out, but you're not getting involved in all of this. This creation of boundary is very, very important. That's where we have to bring it because the department is like that. We have to do it. We have no choice. I agree. That's the important thing. And the third, learn to say no. Be very clear what you're going to get in, what you're not going to get in. That is very important. Learn to say no. It is very necessary in such environments. Do not mess with me. There can be many ways, but I talked about the main ones here. Your credibility, your top-notch performance. You're also helping out. You're understanding the needs of your boss. You're helping out your team members. You're trying to build a relationship with people in terms of helping them. If you help people, people will not mess with you. Clear communication, assertive communication in what you do, in what you say. At the same time, be respectful, listening to people, understanding people. And of course, create that don't mess with me. I'm not a person to mess with. I'm a true professional. This is what I'm going to do. This is not what I'm going to get involved in. This is what I'm going to do. Now, does it solve the problem? It may not be. It's not easy. Sometimes you get stuck in bureaucracy. But the question is, at the end of the day, there are certain things which are systems. That is not a toxic, that's the way the people work. It's a toxic environment. There are some companies where it's very bureaucratic. There's a process, it takes time, people don't want to do it. I agree with all that. But that's not toxic. Sometimes if you are in such a company, it will take time. That's bureaucracy, that's systems. There are companies people don't want to take decisions. But that's different from toxic. Here I'm talking of a toxic environment. And the toxic environment comes from a lot of turnover, people having a negative atmosphere, as I talked about, lack of transparency, and so forth. So those are my 3 strategies. But mindset is equally important. When you brace for impact, you're better prepared. You have different risk management strategies. And within the 3 strategies, you know, the don't mess with me stack is very powerful. But that you can build on yourself if you have established your credibility. And both you demonstrate through the way you communicate with your respectfully assertive communication. So that is what I wanted to say today about toxic environment. Should you have any comments to make, do put it in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask me. And, it has been my pleasure to host this card hour, and I'm here for a couple of more minutes. If you have any questions, any comments, before I say a good night to all of you. So I'm there for another couple of minutes. I'll be keeping quiet now. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to answer them. Hi, Kiran. Yeah.
So the question, my question, Ashish, is related to not a toxic environment. I'm sorry, I've joined midway, but I mean at the end of this session. But I do have a question related to teams, which when team members don't feel that they are being valued, right? And they feel that it's a toxic environment where, I mean, is it considered as toxic, or is it that they're just not feeling valued? And as a result, they are spreading, you know, within the team, those little, what is it called? Those ants, where they make them feel that, oh, maybe my thought is also yours. And that's how, you know, there's a cascading effect in the team about non-value, and that becomes toxic because we don't know whether it's actually true or not. So would you be able to highlight if we have a situation like that where we have team members not feeling valued, how can we stop them from creating more toxin in that environment?
The toxic environment, I spoke at the beginning, comes in different forms. It need not be people shouting at each other. It can be backbiting. People are very disenchanted, like in your case. It's definitely a toxic environment. Now, is that person right in feeling that way is a different matter altogether. But because they feel like that and they're spreading all this, it is a job of the company, the leaders themselves, to one of the key aspects, in any organization, to hear people, hear their concerns, try to address them, try to see what is really bothering them. So when you say people is not being valued, and if that entire process has happened, but still that person is doing it, that person should be immediately terminated because that person has a wrong attitude. But if that is not done, then it's a toxic environment. I should definitely hear people out, right or wrong, try to explain them, understand, make them understand, help them in what they need. If that does not happen, yes, it's a very toxic environment. Even people can backbite each other. They don't feel like working. They feel it is, I feel it is toxic. Then there is a problem of leadership. A leadership problem leads to this kind of toxicity. Toxicity comes in different forms. But if it's all that happened, still that person is doing, then it's a sheer case of disciplinary action or term. Then it becomes an attitude issue. So it depends. But initially, if that's the general feeling, they don't feel valued, it is the job of the company and the leaders to talk to them, understand. I know a situation, in Delhi. This happened in Delhi. And I don't know whether that office was in the outskirts of Delhi or wherever, but this person has to travel a long distance. And then there was a lot of commute expenses, and in general also he was not happy with the salary, and he has to travel long distance to do that. So he asked for, and he was that area where the office was or nearby, it was very expensive. So he went and asked HR, okay, I am having this problem. What can I do? You know what HR answered? Well, that's our policy. If it's not there, I mean, it's not suiting you, you can quit. 100% toxic environment. They may have the best of infrastructure. They could do anything. So the question, it is important to hear the concerns, try to address them or make them understand to the best extent possible. If that is not happening, it's toxic. That should be done. And if it's happening, that's an attitude problem that should be handled disciplinarily.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think the main thing is that if there is a problem, again, it goes back to the leadership, address it ASAP, and see if we can resolve the matter. And if it continues in spite of the action taken, then it's probably an attitude issue, and then that person needs to be removed. So that would be my thing. Thank you, Ashish.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, toxic environment. If you're in a toxic environment, you have to. It's primarily on you to find a solution. Make yourself that person who will not, you don't mess with. But if you are that person where the company is doing your best, but you're still doing that, then yeah, that's the only way out. It comes in different forms. That's the point. Toxicity doesn't mean they're shouting, and it could be a very quiet, very nice environment, but people will biting you from the back. That's what happens.
Ashish, I wanted to give
Yes,
you
sir.
a
Yes, sir.
something you were mentioning that the owner and the environment, everybody is shouting at each other at every small opportunity which was available. My experience is as a positive mind person, I took the responsibility for the shouting of the owner as my responsibility. I made sure the systems are done in such a way I used to bring it to the level of reporting when it is no more a threat. See, the one owner, why he generally gets toxic and shouting, things are going beyond his expectation or they are not going as per the way how he wanted it. So I used to convert the situation to that level that it is no more a threat. So then the whole environmental started feeling very good and everybody started feeling very happy. The happy environment was built.
Yeah,
And
excellent, sir.
main
Very nice.
premises why I did that was, main premises why I did was this concept I always talk about. I used to split my remuneration, what I get, into three parts. One part is for the work what I do. Second part is for the blame I take for my assistant's mistakes. And third part, I take it for receiving all the vented feelings of the owner. Now, this way, my mind was very, very clear. I am paid for doing whatever I am doing. There was no difficulty at all for me. So that is how I could create a lot of peaceful environment.
Excellent, sir. Thank you very much for your inputs. These are very valuable ones, I would say, in how you handle. I think it all comes back to you have to take the ownership on what you did.
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
sorry has helped. When even I used to shout at people and go away. But then when after much later, when I started saying sorry, it made a big impact. It is upon you to take that problem. And one other thing that I now do, which I've learned also, which helps is, people have temper. Like one boss had a lot of temper. When things don't go right, he gets very angry. That's a human temper is not. So what I do, when I observed with time, I learned is better to preempt the news. Morning itself, you tell the bad news. That's what it is. You tell the bad, this is what has happened to you. Then you're already set it up for that person. So understand, that helps because human nature, you can't do. It is not that that person is doing deliberately. When he cools down, he's a very nice person. So I know what is that trigger. You understand that trigger. And then I go and give him the bad news before he comes out and says, this is not happened. This is a problem. So he's not seeing it. I'm giving. So preempting bad news is a very difficult. It's a very useful tool. I have found out in
You,
such situations because
you
toxic is not. Doesn't it comes from insecurity? People who are insecure about themselves. Second is your nature. Like you shout, you're not really a bad person. With time, you have to do it. So there are so much things which I couldn't. A lot of things that you can do, but then it's again, as sir you said, and I also believe you have to find a solution. You have to make that boundary and do it. That's the most important thing. Thank you very much, sir, for your inputs. Always
very
a pleasure listening to you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, all, and thank you for your time. And you all have a good evening. Thank you very much.